A dash of mystery, a sparkle of magic, and all things cozy. Join your host, Elle Hartford, for Cozy Alchemy, a proud member of the Authors on the Air network. Hi everybody, this is Future Elle, just popping in to say that you're going to notice that for this episode, my audio had a bit of a malfunction. But because this is our special Halloween episode, we'll say it was ghosts, and we will leave it at that.
Hello and welcome to Cozy Alchemy, a podcast all about cozy, spooky books. I'm Elle, and my guest today is Jen. She is going to be talking all about her book, Ghost Business, and many other books that she has in just a minute. But first, Jen is going to start us off with a game of Two Truths and a Lie.
Okay, Two Truths and a Lie. These are about me. I figured I'd start off with like some icebreakers to tell you a little bit about myself. So my two truths and a lie are, well, first to start off, I am a Deadhead. I absolutely love the Grateful Dead. My debut novel, which is called Well Met, that takes place in the world of the Renaissance Festival, was the first novel that I ever wrote. And then I have a relatively unimpressive fountain pen collection. So those are my two truths and a lie.
Okay. Ooh, this is good. And it's so funny because another guest on the podcast before has had a similar, potential lie, potential truth about their first book being, one that was immediately published. And I got that wrong. So let's see. I don't know if I'll make the same mistake here or not. I am going to guess that the fountain pen one is the lie.
No, because I've got, here's one, here's a couple more, and then I have some more that are around here somewhere. Although I will say, my fountain pen collection isn't that impressive. I think I said it was a pretty unimpressive one because my favorite fountain pen is the Lamy Safari, and I basically have this one in like 5 or 6 different colors, and then I have a couple of other fountain pens. So yeah, I basically just fixated on the one kind of pen, and then I just got a whole bunch of different colors.
Not unimpressive. It is narrow in scope. That's what we say.
There you go. Specialized. How about that? And then, so do you want me to give away the rest?
Yeah, please.
So this one is also the truth. I'm definitely a Deadhead. I actually have my Grateful Dead mug from when I saw the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame exhibit a few years ago. So that's what I'm drinking coffee out of right now. So yeah, my lie is that Well Met was the first book I ever wrote.
Cool.
I started writing when I was really, really young. It was always my main hobby. And I wrote a few terrible, terrible novels, including one that I queried probably about 20 years ago that I wish I could find those agents and personally apologize to them for sending it to them in the first place because it was so bad. But Well Met was the first one that got me, the one that got me the agent and then got me well, actually, no, it didn't get me the agent. I got an agent with a different book while the book that got me the agent wasn't selling. I wrote Well Met, and that was the book that got me the book deal.
Gotcha.
But it was a long, long road to get there.
Right. No, well, and I love that we've come around and now have had that be true, right? I get myself all twisted around. Be the lie.
Yep. It was a lie.
Yes. I'm glad that we've heard from somebody on the other end of the spectrum now.
But I do know people that they write their first book and they get that deal, and I'm like, how do you do that?
No, I am with you. I similarly, was writing forever and will continue to write forever, whether or not I publish things. So yeah, to me, I'm like, God, doesn't everybody have?
Yeah, that's what I think too.
But that's one of the joys of this podcast is finding out how very, very different we can all be. Okay, and on that note, to get into like actual podcast business. All right. So we're here mostly to talk about your book, Ghost Business, right?
Yeah.
For the season, and yes, you have it there. Beautiful. I love the premise for it. It is so much fun. But can you tell us a little bit about it to get us started?
Absolutely. So Ghost Business takes place in the fictional town of Boneyard Key, Florida, which is considered the most, I believe I said the most haunted small town in Florida, which makes you wonder how many are in the running, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Boneyard Key is a tourist town on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and it is like many other small tourist towns. It kind of fights for the tourist dollars that are left over from Disney and Universal and the theme parks and places like Miami and the other big tourist destinations in Florida. So it takes the fact that it is actually haunted and it has actual ghosts, and it just turns it into a tourist shtick. So they just slap a ghost on a t-shirt and sell it to you. They say, come to town, go on the local ghost tour, spend your money, and then go home. So Sophie, our main character, she's been running a little ghost tour in this town for the past few years. She's grown up in Boneyard Key. It's her home. She loves it more than anything. And she's been running this little ghost tour that is, she strives to keep it accurate. She wants to really tell the tourists the history of this town that she loves so much. She wants the stories to be as truthful as possible, to tell the stories of the people who lived here before, who might still be lingering on, and to really honor their memory. And so she's doing her little thing. It's not making her rich by any means, but she feels very fulfilled doing it. And then suddenly there's a newcomer into town. His name is Tristan Martin. He is the son of a Fortune 500 businessman. He takes his dad's, business acumen, and he combines it with a fraternity fundraiser that he did in college, which was a ghost tour, a cheesy ghost tour he did around campus. He turned it into a business. So it's called Ghouls Night Out. He has it running in 12 cities. He wants Boneyard Key to be lucky number 13. He comes to town with a prepackaged script. It's the same in every town. It's, focus group tested. It's just made up stories where he shows up and he kind of figures out, okay, that house is where I'm going to tell the pirate story. That's where I'm going to tell this story. And it's got nothing to do with reality. It's got nothing to do with historical facts. He's just wants to have a good time and give the tourists a good time. And that's his approach to the business. And so obviously they're coming from very, very different directions. One night they're leading their separate ghost tours and they have a little clash in the street. They have a little fight. It goes viral. And suddenly they're getting a little more attention. He thinks it's great. She's horrified. And so then he comes up with a contest where, whoever's making, the most business, whoever does the most business, gets to keep their ghost tour, and the other one has to shut down operations. So she hates him. She can't stand him. Then of course, they get to know each other, and the enemies become lovers, which is always the fun part. And then I also, my other favorite premise for this book, or the trope that I use in this book, I call There's Only One Hurricane. As a hurricane comes to Boneyard Key, which gives you some really delicious forced proximity. So that's the setup. I feel like I rambled a little bit there, but that's the setup for Ghost Business.
Yeah, no worries at all. And I mentioned it in my notes for you, but so I have a background in museums, being a tour guide, doing educational programming, that sort of thing. And so this obviously there's a lot in your book that is so much fun, but this whole tension of tour guides and are the stories you're telling real and reflective of history really speaks to my heart.
That's awesome. I love that.
But can you speak a little more to that? How did you get that inspiration for competing ghost tours?
Well, I love ghost tours. That's one of my fun things to do. If I go to a city that I don't know, if I'm staying somewhere for a weekend, one of the things I would love to do is let's find a ghost tour, especially if it's a small town kind of situation. And so I just think they're fun. I've always loved to go on ghost tours, and I've just gone on so many different kinds. I mean, I've been on ones that have been led by psychics, where you are literally you have dowsing rods, we're doing the whole thing, really trying to communicate. I've done ones where people are, guys dressed up as an old timey sheriff, and he's, walking you past the cemetery, and he's telling you a story that may or may not be true. Then there are some where they're dressed up in the top hat and the tails and the old Dickensian suit and all that. And they're making it up. You can tell they're just making it up, having a good time. So there's just so many different approaches to it. And so I just loved the idea of rival ghost tours coming at it from different angles. I mean, and either one can be successful. There's no one correct way to do it necessarily. But I just loved the idea of these two coming at it from different angles and clashing. And just, I had probably the first image for this book I had in my head was just, you know, them getting into an argument in the middle of the street with their little ghost tours behind them.
Right. Yeah, no, it works really well, and it's so fun. And I think that's so neat because we often, especially with cozy mystery authors who come on the podcast, right, we often end up talking about, you know, kind of like niche areas of expertise. You know, maybe it's the
Mm.
library or maybe it's the tea shop or whatever. I love this idea of the niche area of expertise being ghost tours.
Ghost tours. It's kind of random, isn't it?
It's just, that's so cool. That's such a neat way to travel.
Well, it's just, to me, it's a fun way to learn like the history of a town or of a, you know, a specific place. You know,
Hmm.
even if the stories aren't necessarily accurate, they still come from somewhere that's local. And so it's a
Yeah.
really good way to just sort of learn like the history and the culture of a place, to me, I think.
Now, uh, kind of building on this idea of, you know, your town and your history and everything, like the ghost business is actually the second in your series, right? And the first was Haunted Ever After. Also very, very funny, it sounds like. Do you have plans to keep writing in this series?
I do. I have a lot of plans. I have plans for these characters and these people. And that's one thing that's so just to kind of give you a little background, I lived in Florida for about 25 years, and so I definitely know of which I speak about living in tourist towns and just the wackiness that comes from living in Florida. That's not necessarily connected to the big tourist destinations, like I said, the theme parks and Miami and Daytona Beach and that sort of thing. So so yeah, I've had so much fun just kind of developing this little town and the people that live in it and the people that used to live in it that might still be hanging around. Um, and it's just been a lot of fun to get to know these people and to get to know this town. And you know, I created it with Haunted Ever After, and then with Ghost Business I got to kind of, you know, deepen some connections, and I got to sort of expand a little bit on the town itself. And so it's been really fun to really get to know these people, get to know this location. And yeah, I definitely have some ideas for some things I want to do with this series, so I definitely hope to continue.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you've invested so much time in the setting and in the characters, as you're saying. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And now, which came first? Did you get the setting idea first or the characters?
Setting, well, I think the setting kind of came first because what I was trying to do, I had written 4 books in my Renaissance Faire series, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to write next. And I had an idea for something to do with a beach house, and then I had an idea to do with ghosts, and I kind of put those two together and said beach ghosts, and I kind of laughed, my agent kind of laughed, and we were like, okay, this is a good idea. And so I was thinking about it some more, and I've always loved ghost stories. Ghost stories always intrigue me, not like horror, but more like slightly spooky. Like Julie and the Phantoms on Netflix, the TV show Ghosts, the Haunted Mansion at Disney, you know, that sort of vibe. You know, there might be a little bit of a chill, but it's mostly just kind of fun, you know.
Right.
Um, so that to me was very intriguing, and I had a bunch of different just sort of ideas and sparks for ideas that were little haunted ideas. And so I thought, well, okay, I can either just send my agent like a list of like 15 ghost stories, and she can be like, you know, either pick one or stop sending me ghost stories, or I could just sort of create a place where they could all happen, you know. And so that was kind of where Boneyard Key came from, because I really wanted to write something that took place in a beach town. I wanted to do something Florida touristy. So I thought that would be really fun. And so it just kind of all came together, and I named it Boneyard Key, and I was like, well, let's go.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. It works. But I was just curious that that topic has come up previously in some panels that I was part of where we were talking about setting, and it's fascinating how, you know, even, you know, a lot of cozy genres tend to be very character driven, and it's the
Hmm.
characters we fall in love with, but the setting itself can become a character or have the same sort of connection to it.
Very much so. Yeah, yeah. And those are the best kinds of stories, right? Because I love, like, you know, some cozy mysteries and those sorts of things too, have where place is character, and it becomes a place you want to hang out in. And so that's,
Mhm.
yeah, to me it's just important to make the place as appealing as the people that are in it. for
Gotcha,
sure.
absolutely. So cool. Okay. Well, and because you mentioned being into ghost stories, and in
Hmm.
honor of both Boneyard Key and spooky season, I have to ask if you have had any paranormal experiences yourself.
I would say not overtly, but I have spent some time in Casadega, Florida, which is it's not even a town. I think it's not even considered big enough to be a town or a village, but it's a sort of area that's populated by psychics and
Mm.
has a lot of paranormal activity. And so I've spent some time there. I've gotten some readings from some psychics there, and I had one communicate with the spirit of my grandfather, which was very, very accurate. You know how sometimes you can get sort of those readings and they're vague and they can kind of apply to anybody, but he
Yes.
said some things that were pretty accurate, and I was like, "Oh, this might really be my granddaddy." Like, this was kind of it was a little surprising. And I've had some extremely specific dreams after some family members have passed, where I really have woken up feeling like I've talked to them and kind of given them one last goodbye. So I do. I think there's something to it for sure. And I've done enough research and read enough accountings of hauntings that I'm like, there might be something to this, even if it's just, there's that. This is gonna sound so weird, but there's that saying from the Marvel movie Thor, right? He says
Okay.
something about, like, that what you call magic, we call science, or something like that. That sometimes magic and the paranormal is just some sort of science that hasn't been discovered or quantified yet. So I really do think that there's something to residual energy, or that it could be considered a haunting, that maybe someday we're going to figure out what it really means, or what it really, what that energy actually represents. But I think there's something to it. I think there's definitely something to it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I really like that way of putting it. Uh, so then we're, I'm sure, of course, a lot of your experiences there and experiences on all your ghost tours informed ghost business, but was there anything specifically with it where you were like, I have to include this? Or,
Oh wow. Well, there's one moment in the book that it was kind of a later edition, where, I mean, I don't know if this really answers the question, but there's one moment where Sophie is on her tour and she's found some new information, so she's created a new story, and she takes the tourists to a specifically new place to tell them a specific story about the town. And as she's leaving, she sort of gets the feeling of being thanked by the spirits of the town.
mm,
And that to me was an important story to tell in there, because she was wanting very much to, like I said, honor the place where she's grown up. And I think so it was important to me for the ghosts of the town to kind of acknowledge her back. So that to me was important. I don't know if that quite answers the question the way that you wanted me
yeah,
to, but that
yeah,
that was a scene that kind of that ended up meaning a lot to me when I wrote it. Even though, like I said, it was a later edition, it was probably pretty late in the process. But I was like, I need to stick this in here.
no, absolutely. And I know, I'm sorry, I did kind of spring that question on you. Uh, I was just curious, but it's perfect though, because I really like that idea of it's because a lot of it with her is her sincerity, right, in telling the
Yeah,
story.
definitely. And to compare and contrast, the way that Tristan approaches it, where he's very, entertainment based as opposed to truth based, and
Hmm.
the ghosts don't like that. The ghosts don't like that as much.
Right.
And he finds that out. So,
Yeah. All right. Now, so your website describes you as a happily ever after enthusiast, which is very
yes.
cool, very clever. And on this note, with the sincerity and everything, what draws you to these kinds of stories?
I think just the promise that it's going to be okay. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and a lot that people are anxious about and frightened about. And the number of times that I have reached for a really good book that I know is going to give me a good feeling when I close it, you can take me on a ride. You can drag me through it. I'm fine with that. The example I always use is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan
Oh,
Bannon. And I don't know
Classic.
if you've read that, but
Yeah.
there's a moment, probably I want to say 60 to 75% of the way through that book, where I was literally sobbing. I was like, how is this book going to end well? There's no way. But I was trusting the process, and it's one of my favorite books. It just gives you such a great feeling at the end. It ends beautifully. You can give me that, you can wreck me emotionally all the way through it, as long as you give me a happy and satisfying ending. And I think that comfort reads are a thing. I think that we all have them, and they're what we need right now, I think. So yeah, I mean, I like all kinds of books, but I am always going to reach for ones that I, romance novels and other, kind of lighter, more cozy books that I know are going to give me a good feeling when I close it, because I need it right now.
Right. It's there. Well, and very, very appropriate to bring up the undertaking of Heart and Mercy, like also kind of spooky, like ghoulish,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's You've Got Mail with Zombies, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very seasonally appropriate and like king appropriate. But I really like what you were saying, using as an example. It's something that we've talked about on the podcast before, where to be a cozy book doesn't necessarily mean to be a light book, because a lot of
Right,
you know
right.
cozy mystery, cozy fantasy, or romance will take on they'll have very emotional themes or kind of sometimes heavier issues, but it's that assurance, right, of knowing that something.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. How do you create that?
God, I don't know.
I know, I know, I am so putting you on the spot, and I'm so
I
sorry.
think that no, but that is interesting, because I think that there are a lot of people that that want to kind of look down their noses at the romance genre, at a cozier genre, and think, yeah, it's just fluff, it's just light, but they can tackle topics. I mean, I have books with characters that deal with anxiety. I have books with plus size characters. I have a character who is still dealing with grief of losing a family member. I had in Haunted Ever After, as the main character deals with being infertile. There's You can tackle heavier topics, and I think that's part of making those characters grounded. Giving them reality, as opposed to just being a character to serve a story. You want these people to feel like real people, and to feel like somebody that you might know. And I think that the cozy genre and a romance genre is a great way to tackle those, because again, you still have that happy ever after guarantee, or that satisfactory ending. But you can still tackle some heavier topics, and you can tackle them with some emotional depth. And I think and that just makes the book all that much better, I think.
Going along with that, a haunting, combining those
Hmm.
with happily ever afters and comedy. Like, was that
Yeah.
something that came naturally to you when you started writing it?
Well, I feel like I have a sort of a humorous voice, I think, when I write. I tell people that I write two series now. I have the Boneyard Key series and the Well Met series, and I tell people that they're very similar in terms of vibes. They're both small town. It's both, big friend groups that have banter, and I am very much a banter comedy kind of person when I write. I'm very sarcastic in person. So a lot of it's just kind of the way that I am as a human being. Um, but like I said, the things that attract me about hauntings, like I said, my kind of my inspirations, again, Julie and the Phantoms, the Haunted Mansion, those kinds of things are very lighthearted when it comes to ghosts and when it comes to hauntings. So it was that to me, I like that end of things rather than making walls bleed. So I'm just more into the more fun part of being a ghost or whatever. And so it was a lot of fun to write a story. In Haunted Ever After, one of the ghosts that's a main character in that, or a supporting character in that book, communicates via text message to one of the other main characters. And one of the first questions my agent asked was, "Can a ghost send a text message?" And I'm like, "Well, they can here, and this is how it goes. This is what we're doing. We're doing this." So it was. I wouldn't say, I don't know if I say it comes naturally, but it was just that, to me, was the natural way to go about it. So
Right.
it made the most sense to me, and it was the most fun for me to write, because I'm not going to write a book if it's not fun to write. I mean, if I'm not enjoying the process in some way.
Yeah.
There's always some, some books are harder to write than others, and there's always some uncertainty when you're figuring out the plot and all of that. But the bottom line is, I write a book because I want to write it. It's a story that I want to tell, and most of the stories that I want to tell are going to have some humor and heart to them. So that's just the way that it comes out.
I love that, and I love that it's stemming from what you enjoy as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And now you've mentioned the Well Met series a couple times. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that too?
Sure. Real quick, it's like I said, it takes place in the world of the Renaissance Festival. The first book is called Well Met. It is about a woman who gets roped into volunteering at a small town Renaissance festival. She's in town taking care of her sister who's been in a car accident, and she gets roped into volunteering. She clashes with the guy who runs the festival, who's very uptight, doesn't want to hear any ideas of how things might be improved or changed or anything. He has his way of doing things and just do what he says. They don't get along at all until the first day of the festival. She's in her tavern wench costume, and suddenly he's a hot pirate in leather pants. And suddenly he's flirting with her, and what is going on? And suddenly they're kissing, and what is going on? So it's a lot about, is this in character? Is this just, are we kissing as people? Are we just kissing as these characters? And it's become a 4-book series, soon to be 5-book series. That just expands on the friend groups and follows a different couple for each installment, and it's been a really fun series to write.
Very fun. Oh, that's so cool. So? Of course, my standard question about upcoming books to highlight, is that your next book?
Yes. So the next book is going to be the 5th book in the Ren Faire series. I don't think I can announce the title yet. We're still kind of workshopping that internally, but yeah. So book 5, which I'm just calling Ren Faire 5 right now, is due to be published in the fall of 2026, and I'm very, very excited about it. It's been really fun because the last Ren Faire book came out in 2022, and then I wrote Haunted Ever After and Ghost Business. So I've been in Boneyard Key for a little while. So then to go back to the fictional town in Maryland where the Well Met series is set has been a lot of fun to go back and revisit all of these characters and see these people that I've wrote about these characters for a good 5-6 years. So it's really fun to go back and like kind of catch up with them and see what they've been up to. And it's very weird in an author's head how these characters become real people. And yeah, it's how's so and so been doing? And so yeah, it's a little bizarre in my head sometimes.
Well, but in a good way, because then you get a homecoming of sorts, right?
Yes, absolutely, in a very good way. In a very good way.
That's awesome. Okay, what advice would you give to yourself if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were just starting out? What would you say?
Oh, wow. I would say keep at it, honestly. There are some things, ever so often I don't know. You can't wish things were different in the past, because everything that happens in the past has led to where you are right now. Any choice that you make leads to the person that you are today, right? So if I hadn't made certain choices, if we hadn't moved to a certain town, we wouldn't have the pets that we have now, things like that, right? So I can't think too deeply on it, but I would just tell myself to keep at it, because there are a lot of times that I thought, well, this is stupid. I'm never going to make it as a writer. It's never going to happen for me. Writing was my hobby from the time I was probably 6 years old. It's just always been a thing that I did. I always had notebooks and I wrote stories in them. And then as I got computers and word processors, I would type on them. And it was always just my main hobby. It was always just something that I had fun doing. And it was probably only about 10 or 12 years ago that I really started taking it seriously and started trying to do something with it. But I think all of that time that it was my hobby led to me finally being able to get an agent and get a book deal and really get published. And so I would just tell myself to not give up. Keep going at it. Every time, any rejection that you get is still a step forward, because you learn something from it. So any book that I've written, I think I mentioned at the beginning of this that that I had queried a book about 20 years ago that was horrible, but it taught me. I learned things from it. Anything that you learn, even if it's a book that will live in a drawer forever and no one will see the light of day, you learn something while you're writing it. Right. So, and you can also go back and you can steal from it if you need a good description of, a spooky house or something. You can, oh yeah, I wrote about that in this, and you can just take that description that you wrote and just plug it into something else, and that's fine. It's not stealing. So yeah, it all leads to the next thing. And actually, there are characters in the Boneyard Key series that were in a different book that I wrote probably about 10 years ago. That I never finished the book. I liked it, but it wasn't quite gelling. The characters of Nan, who's an octogenarian ghost hunter, and her granddaughter Libby, are characters from a different book that I wrote ages ago that I never finished. And then as I was developing Boneyard Key and writing Haunted Ever After, I went, wait a minute. I really liked Libby and her grandma, the ghost hunter. And so I took them out of this old manuscript that lives, in a hard drive and stuck them in this book. And now they have a second life. So nothing's ever wasted as a writer. Steal from yourself.
I love that advice. And I love it's a very good full circle moment coming back around.
It was. It really was.
Very well done.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Our very last question. What is one win you've had in the past week? Could be big or small, anything.
Okay, I do have a win. I was just traveling. I was just in Dallas, Texas last weekend, and so I flew home yesterday. And as I was packing my stuff to get back, to get ready to leave, my suitcase was very, very full and very, very heavy. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna check this bag because I don't feel like dealing with it. So I was like, I'm gonna pay to check this bag, and so I went online to check in for my flight. And it said, do you want to upgrade to first class for $90? And I said, heck yes, I do. $90? Are you kidding me? That's the free checked bag and a really nice seat. So I got to fly home first class, which was wonderful. My bag was checked and I got a little pre-flight beverage, and we were stuck on the tarmac for about 45 minutes and I didn't care because I was in a first class seat. So that was a win.
That's so much fun. But yeah, well done. Good.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
It was amazing. Because I don't know but sometimes on the app, it'll before the flight, it'll be like, oh, you can upgrade for $300. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's a ridiculous amount of money. But $90? Heck yeah. Absolutely. Worth every penny.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
I'll have your links and everything in the show notes so that everybody can check you out. And all of your books sound wonderful and fun, but of course, Haunted Ever After and Ghost Business, especially appropriate for the season.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
very Halloween-y.
Right. Thank you once more, and listeners, I will talk to you next time.
Cozy Alchemy is brought to you by Authors on the Air, and our theme music is by Cyberwave Orchestra. For everything else, blame Elle. You can find her online at ellehartford.com.